Palestine, at least 21 people, including 5 children and 2 women, were killed in airstrikes in central Gaza on Monday night, as reported by Al-Aqsa Hospital. Haiti condemned the deportations of its citizens from the Dominican Republic. In Venezuela, the president Nicolas Maduro denounced that members of the far right are trying to create a parallel central bank in view of the good data of the national economy. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Palestine, at least 21 people, including 5 children and 2 women, were killed in airstrikes in central Gaza on Monday night, as reported by Al-Aqsa Hospital. The attacks occurred on the anniversary of Israel's genocide against Palestine. 2 shellings targeted homes in the Bureis refugee camp, where emergency services recovered the bodies and transported them to a hospital in Deir al-Balah, which also treated several injured individuals, including children. Emergency services indicate that more victims may still be trapped under the rubble of collapsed buildings. Palestinian death toll in Gaza has now reached nearly 42,000, according to local health officials. On Monday, the United Nations Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, highlighted Syria's gesture of solidarity with the displaced Lebanese. The United Nations experts thanked the government of President Bashar al-Assad for this great cooperation and the gestures of allowing everyone to enter Syrian territory without any kind of discrimination. The UNHCR chief highlighted the extraordinary work of the employees and volunteers of the Syrian Red Crescent and the other organizations in the country that have carried out continuous 24-hour workdays. In Yemen, demonstrations and acts of solidarity with the Palestinian people took place on the 1-year anniversary of the Israeli regime's genocide against civilian population in the Gaza Strip. Large crowds demonstrated in support of the Palestinian cause, condemning the ongoing crimes committed by the Israeli occupation and emphasizing Arab and Islamic solidarity with the Palestinian people. Meanwhile, in Jordan, hundreds of members of the National Forum in support of the resistance organized a protest a few meters away from the Israeli embassy headquarters in the capital, Amman, under the slogan, "Siege to the Zionist Embassy." In this sense, several Arab cities joined the protest, demonstrating their support for the Palestinian struggle against the criminal actions of the Israeli occupation.
October 7th is the anniversary of the Battle of Al-Aqsa Flood, a battle that proved that the Palestinian resistance and resistance fighters in Gaza can end the criminal fascist Zionist occupation that has besieged Gaza for more than 16 years.
The day of the Al-Aqsa flood, October 7th, was a memorable day and a day that will go down in history as the day when Israel was weaker than a spider's web. Israel showed a weakness in the technological power it used to brag about to the Arabs.
Francesca Albanese is the United Nations Special Rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories. In an exclusive interview for teleSUR conducted by our Special Envoy, Yunus Soner, Albanese accused Israel of committing genocide in the strict sense of international law.
Francesca Albanese is the Unhuman Rights Rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories. She speaks a clear language.
Israel has been violating international law since its very foundation, because it should have complied with the resolutions that were conditional upon its acceptance as a member.
The United Nations Special Rapporteur is responsible for investigating human rights violations by Israel, receiving communications, hearing witnesses, and reporting her findings. Albanese reported to the UN that Israel was committing genocide, in the legal sense.
Mass killing is mass killing. Genocide is when you might not commit mass killing, but with intent to destroy the group as such. It's this mindset that is the characteristic of genocide.
Francesca Albanese lectures on international law and applauds the work of the International Criminal Court. She calls for an ad hoc tribunal dedicated only to Palestine and calls states to account.
But the point is that states have obligations to bring this to an end and can do that. They have to, but they need to stop providing weapons to Israel. They need to suspend the financial and economic relations, and then, if needed, political and diplomatic relations. Israel at this point.
This October 7th, Albanese gives a lecture at the University of Siena. Before a full house, he says that the peoples of the world are more important than governments.
I've been really touring like many countries this past 12 months, and not once there was not such a level of response, because young people and others, they cannot stomach the killing of civilians anymore, the killing of children anymore. They want this to stop. And there is this schism between the popular demand and the government's decision that is also extremely problematic.
Yunus Sonar, teleSUR, Siena, Italia.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. We'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Deportation of its citizens from the Dominican Republic, whose government announced last week that it will repatriate up to 10,000 undocumented migrants per week. At least 6 truckloads of Haitians were reported at the migrant Domingo before being transferred to the border for deportation in various parts of the country. The Haitian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dominique Dupuy, called for the scenes brutal on her account on the social media X, and further assured that this migration policy of the Dominican government contravenes international human rights standards as well as the imperative of respect for human dignity. Let's take a look at some facts about Haiti. The country has been facing alarming levels of attacks by criminal groups, a growing humanitarian crisis, and an internal and external exodus for years amid the government's inability to restore stability. As a result of the violence, more than 160,000 Haitians have been internally displaced in the Port-au-Prince region alone, struggling to get by in a country where many government institutions have ceased to function. Despite criticism of forced returns to Haiti and calls to stop deportations in the face of the crisis and insecurity in that country, last year 216,000 Haitians were deported from neighboring states. President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, assured that house-to-house questionnaires will be carried out to analyze the living conditions of the elderly in the country.
A very quick summary. All the elderly and people with disabilities wait for an official of the nation who will come to your home and will conduct a very comprehensive questionnaire about your health situation. This questionnaire was prepared for months with the Secretary of Health David Kirshenovich and our team. Once we have these questionnaires, we will know the health condition of each of the elderly men or women.
The Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum also announced a meeting between the Mexican Foreign Minister and the Ambassador of the United States.
The foreign minister will meet with the U.S. ambassador to address some follow-up issues that were being carried out.
And domestic emergencies, flexibility of the working day that cannot exceed 8 hours, and those related to the health working women. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you're going to be able to rewatch our special interviews, our special programmings, and so much more. Welcome back. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro denounced that members of the far right are trying to create a parallel central bank in view of the good data of the national economy. This is what the president said during his program Maduro Más, where he pointed out that the economist Jose Guerra of the political organization Justice First, an observatory of the economy in which Guerra imposes figures that have no basis, and that will be the pilot for the creation of an organization that would function as a parallel central bank and from which to attack, generate disinformation and negative data about the Venezuelan economy, which according to national and international organizations is in very good conditions.
The economy is going well. We have to take care of Venezuela. We have to take care of the economy so that nobody interferes with the economy. Because there are many conspirators. There is a certain Jose Guerra from Justice First who has a kind of Venezuelan observatory of the economy that now tries to be like the parallel central bank. He gets the figures he wants because he lives comfortably abroad with what he stole from Justice First. He denounced it. He, who worked at one time in the revolutionary left as an infiltrator in an organization that was called Revolutionary Tendency, and then ended up being a spokesman for the extreme right of the economic groups.
In Venezuela, the Secretary of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, started Monday a work agenda to consolidate relations and the future of oil markets. OPEC Secretary General Haitham Al-Qais met with the Venezuelan Minister of the People's Power for Oil, teleSUR Rodriguez, at the headquarters in Caracas of the state-owned oil company PDVSA. The meeting seeks to strengthen policies and strategies for the benefit of the oil-producing countries in the world's oil market and to expand cooperation alliances with this important multilateral organization. OPEC Secretary General Haitham Al-Qais sentenced that the world growth will demand much more quantities of energy from all sources.
At OPEC, we launched 2 weeks ago our World Oil Outlook, which is a research document that we do every year.
Que fazemos cada año. Esta vez extendamos el periodo hasta 2050, donde
This time we are extending the period until 2050, where we launched our vision for the world on the growth of primary energy demand. So for oil, with the growth of the world economy, which we see is going to double in size compared to today, until 2050, with the growth of world population, which is going to increase from 8 billion to 9.7 billion 2050. And also two very fundamental elements, energy poverty in some parts of the world. Today we have almost 700 million people who don't have access to electricity. We have urbanization.
Muy fundamentales, la pobreza energética en partes del mundo. Hoy tenemos casi 700 millones de personas que no tienen acceso a electricidad. Y tenemos la urbanización que es muy importante.
Urbanization is very important since we have almost 60 million people that we are going to mobilize to create 9 cities in the world until 2030. Then, all these are the most important factors leading us to the conclusion that the world will need much more energy, all energy sources, not only oil, also gas, solar, eolic, all forms of energy are going to be important for the future, for the growth of the world.
Solar, vento, todas las formas de energía que van a ser importantes para el futuro, para el crecimiento.
In Chile, $17,000 a month for half a working day was the salary that the former Minister of Education of Sebastián Piñera had assigned to a private university, uncovering the scandal about business in education. From Santiago de Chile, our colleague Paola Dragni with the details.
Son dos caras de una misma moneda.
They are two sides of the same coin. The Chilean Teachers Association will walk for 3 days in a procession to Congress that seeks to draw the government's attention to different issues, such as the teachers' historical debt and the school coexistence bill, among many others.
We have the issue of public education that is falling apart. It is no exaggeration to say it. There are places where it is literally falling apart. Roofs are collapsing. Schools are flooded. There are unsanitary bathrooms. There are plagues of mice. This is true at the municipal level, as well as in the local services. Public education that have not solved many of the problems.
A government ironically headed by former student leaders who seem to have forgotten their old demands. Everything remains the same in school and university education. The private world does not let go of the business, and the scandal with the former education minister of Sebastián Piñera, Marcela Cubillos, is the tip of the iceberg.
Mrs. Cubillos is not untouchable. That is why we have asked the Comptroller's Office for a pronouncement regarding the action she carried out when she was Minister of Education, because her argument of trying to protect herself behind her freedom is not an argument that shields her from having to answer to state institutions, and in this case to the Comptroller's Office for State Resources.
Marcela
Cubillos, when she was Minister of Education, reportedly transferred close to $1.5 million to San Sebastián University, where she later worked as a professor with a salary of $17,000 a month for half a day. And she is proud of it.
This is a private university that has autonomy. The students that enter the San Sebastián University choose a private project, a project without free education. What does the left want? Again, that all universities should be state universities and that the left should be the ones to define what is taught, who teaches, how it is taught. This does not exist in Chile because we said no 2 years ago in the rejection.
She was a key face during the campaign for the change of constitution, sharpening the message against public education, but without opposing state contributions. Now, it is clearer why.
We are concerned about these $1,500 million that were transferred to the San Sebastián University, which looks more like the University of San Sebastián Piñera, because it has become the paymaster of countless officials and collaborators of this government.
Practically all the right-wing politicians who were with the late former president are now in this university company.
There is a legal issue that is clearly being seen in the judicial system and the superintendents of education, which is also important to us. And the university has had no response to us, the students, due to the same case of Marcela Cubillos. This case was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
The students of this university are outraged. They denounce academic and infrastructural shortcomings. But in the free market, marketing seems to be the most important thing.
teleSUR, Chile.
In Mali, the army thwarted a new terrorist attack. The aggression was planned against Timbuktu airport. The armed forces announced that an extremist group tried to attack the airport and previously a security post in the city of Ber. The armed forces' action seized a large number of weapons, drugs, and neutralized several of the extremists. The military junta shares that for months, terrorists with the support of the West have been trying to destabilize the process of decolonization and independence that they are carrying out together with the Malian people. Hurricane Milton continues to move over the waters of the Gulf of Mexico near the northern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula on its way to Florida. According to the 11 p.m. National Hurricane Center bulletin, Milton was centered about 35 miles northwest of Progreso, Mexico, and about 630 miles southwest of Tampa, with maximum sustained winds of 165 miles per hour. The system is moving east at 9 miles per hour. Hurricane and storm surge warnings have been issued for Yucatan and the west coast of Florida, with significant impacts expected. Residents are advised to prepare for life-threatening conditions, including high winds and storm surges that could lead to flooding. The situation remains critical as Milton approaches landfall. We have come to the end of this news brief. Before you can join for more information, you can go to our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.